You know what's truly heartbreaking? Watching brilliant, insightful, incredibly aware individuals sabotage their own success. They understand precisely what needs to change. Establish morning routines, eliminate distractions, improve their diet, complete that abandoned project, yet they remain trapped in identical patterns, week after week. And here's what most people get wrong. This isn't about laziness. It's not even about lacking motivation. The real issue runs much deeper, into the very fabric of our psychological makeup. Most self-help approaches treat discipline like a muscle you can simply strengthen through repetition. But what if I told you that your struggle with consistency has nothing to do with willpower and everything to do with an internal war you didn't even know you were fighting? This is where Carl Jung's revolutionary insights become game-changing. Jung wasn't interested in quick fixes or productivity hacks. He was fascinated by the hidden forces within our psyche that control our behavior from the shadows. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Your undisciplined behavior might actually be your psyche's way of protecting you. When Jung studied human behavior, he discovered that our conscious mind, the part that sets goals and makes plans, is often in direct conflict with our unconscious mind, which operates according to completely different rules. Think about it this way. Your conscious mind is like the CEO of a company, making strategic decisions and setting direction. But your unconscious mind is like the entire workforce. If they're not on board with the CEO's vision, nothing gets done efficiently. Here's what makes this even more complex. Your unconscious mind doesn't care about your logical reasons for wanting to change. It operates on emotion, memory, and survival patterns that were often established decades ago. So when you decide to wake up at 5 a.m., your unconscious might be screaming, "Danger." This feels like the time we were forced to do things we hated. This creates what psychologists call psychological reactance. The more you try to force yourself into discipline, the stronger your internal resistance becomes. It's like trying to push a beach ball underwater. The harder you push, the more violently it springs back up. Now let's dive deeper into Jung's concept of the shadow, because this is where most people's understanding gets superficial. The shadow isn't just bad parts of yourself. It's specifically the parts of your personality that you've learned to reject, suppress, or feel ashamed of. Here's a powerful example. Maybe you were raised in a family that valued being responsible and serious all the time. Any part of you that wanted to be playful, spontaneous, or rebellious got pushed into the shadow. Now, as an adult, when you try to maintain strict discipline, that shadow part rebels by making you procrastinate, scroll social media, or abandon your commitments. The shadow isn't trying to ruin your life, it's trying to restore balance. It's saying, "Hey, you've been ignoring me for years, and I'm not going away until you acknowledge what I need." But here's the crucial insight Jung discovered. The shadow contains not just our perceived negative traits, but also our hidden strengths. That rebellious part of you might also be your creativity, your authenticity, your ability to think outside the box. When you suppress it entirely, you lose access to these gifts. This is why some of the most disciplined people can feel empty or burned out. They've achieved external success by suppressing vital parts of themselves. True discipline isn't about elimination, it's about integration. Let's get specific about how these unconscious patterns form. Most of our core beliefs about discipline, success, and self-worth were established before age 7, when our brains were like sponges, absorbing everything without critical thinking. Maybe you heard messages like, "You never finish anything you start. You're so lazy compared to your sister. If you don't work hard, you'll amount to nothing. Good children don't cause problems." These messages didn't just create beliefs. They created what Jung called complexes. A complex is like a mini personality within you that gets triggered in specific situations. When you try to be disciplined, you might be unknowingly activating a complex that associates effort with criticism or success with losing love. Here's what's fascinating. You can be a successful adult and still have a scared 8-year-old making decisions about your behavior. That child might sabotage your goals because they learn that trying hard leads to disappointment, or that being good means losing your authentic self. The breakthrough comes when you realize that this inner child isn't your enemy. They're trying to protect you with strategies that worked in the past but no longer serve you. Once you understand this, you can start having a different relationship with your resistance. Now, let's add some modern neuroscience to Jung's insights. Your brain has different systems that can literally work against each other. Your prefrontal cortex, the executive part of your brain, makes logical decisions about discipline. But your limbic system, which includes your amygdala, is constantly scanning for threats and can override those logical decisions in milliseconds. When you've experienced trauma, criticism, or chronic stress around performance, your limbic system can perceive discipline as a threat. It doesn't matter that your conscious mind knows discipline is good for you. Your survival brain is saying, "This situation feels familiar and dangerous." This is why willpower alone fails. You're not just fighting bad habits, you're fighting millions of years of evolution and decades of conditioning. The solution isn't to fight harder, it's to work with your brain's natural patterns. Before we dive into the solutions, I want to ask you something. Are you recognizing yourself in this description? If this is hitting home, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we're going deep into psychology and personal transformation on this channel. And drop a comment below. What's one area where you feel this internal conflict most strongly? Let's build a community of people who are ready to do this deeper work. Now, let's get practical with some advanced techniques that go beyond basic shadow work. Don't just write to your shadow, create a full conversation. Set up 2 chairs. Sit in one as your disciplined self and speak your goals and frustrations out loud. Then switch chairs and respond as your resistant self. Let this part express its fears, anger, or needs without censoring it. You might discover that your resistant part is actually trying to protect something precious: your creativity, your need for rest, your authentic personality. Once you understand what it's protecting, you can find ways to honor those needs while still moving toward your goals. Your body holds memories and emotions that your mind might not consciously remember. When you feel resistance to discipline, pause and scan your body. Where do you feel tension? What emotions are present? Breathe into those areas and ask what they're trying to tell you. Sometimes resistance shows up as chest tightness, fear, stomach knots, anxiety, or shoulder tension, carrying too much responsibility. Your body is giving you information about what your psyche needs. Jung identified universal patterns called archetypes that influence our behavior. You might discover that your resistance comes from an inner rebel archetype that refuses to conform, or an inner wounded child that associates discipline with punishment. Instead of fighting these archetypes, learn to work with them. The rebel can become the innovator who finds creative ways to achieve goals. The wounded child can become the wise child who knows when to rest and when to push forward. Here's where most people get discipline completely wrong. They think it's about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. But Jung would say that true discipline is about aligning with your authentic self, not fighting against it. Real discipline asks, what does my highest self need right now? Sometimes that's pushing through resistance. Sometimes it's resting. Sometimes it's changing course entirely because you've been pursuing goals that aren't actually yours. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who you think you should be. When your discipline comes from this place of self-love and authenticity, it doesn't feel like a struggle. It feels like coming home to yourself. Integration doesn't mean letting your shadow run wild. It means acknowledging all parts of yourself and finding ways for them to coexist harmoniously. Here's a practical framework. Step 1. Acknowledge without judgment. I notice there's a part of me that doesn't want to do this. That's okay. This part has something important to tell me. Step 2. Explore the underlying need. What is this part trying to protect? What does it need to feel safe? Step 3. Negotiate a solution. How can I honor this need while still moving toward my goals? What would a compromise look like? Step 4. Create new patterns. What would discipline look like if it came from love rather than fear? How can I structure my goals to include all parts of myself? Instead of aiming for perfect discipline, aim for 90%. This gives your shadow permission to exist without completely derailing your progress. You might plan to work out 6 days a week, while knowing you'll probably skip one day, and that's built into the plan. Instead of forcing yourself to be disciplined at arbitrary times, learn to read your natural energy rhythms. Your shadow might resist morning routines because you're naturally more creative at night. Work with your nature, not against it. What's the smallest action you can take that still moves you forward? Sometimes your shadow is rebelling because the goal feels too big or overwhelming. Start with something so small that even your resistant parts can't object. Transform discipline from a chore into a sacred practice. Create rituals around your goals that honor both your conscious intentions and your unconscious needs. Maybe your workout becomes a moving meditation, or your writing practice becomes a conversation with your soul. Jung believed that psychological healing and spiritual growth were inseparable. When you're struggling with discipline, you're often struggling with a deeper question: who am I, really, and what is my purpose? Sometimes our resistance to discipline is actually our soul's way of saying, this isn't your path. Maybe you're trying to force yourself into someone else's definition of success. Maybe your procrastination is actually your intuition telling you to slow down and reassess. This is where discipline becomes a spiritual practice. It's not about achieving external goals. It's about becoming more fully yourself. Every time you choose to show up for your authentic goals, you're participating in what Jung called the opus contra naturam, the work against nature that transforms you into who you're meant to be. Let me share how this might look in practice. Sarah, a client, couldn't stick to her writing routine. She'd set goals, create schedules, but always abandon them after a few days. Through shadow work, she discovered that her resistance came from her inner perfectionist, a part that had learned in childhood that anything less than perfect was shameful. This part would rather not try at all than risk producing imperfect work. She also found an inner rebel that associated schedules with her controlling mother. This part would sabotage any structured approach because it felt like imprisonment. Instead of fighting these parts, Sarah learned to work with them. She created imperfect writing time, where the goal was to write badly on purpose, satisfying her rebel's need for freedom and reducing her perfectionist's fear of failure. The result? She's now published 2 books and writes consistently, not through force, but through integration. When you do this work successfully, something profound shifts. You stop feeling like you're fighting yourself all the time. Your goals start to feel more authentic, more aligned with who you actually are, rather than who you think you should be. Discipline transforms from a harsh taskmaster into a loving practice of self-care. You make choices not from fear or pressure, but from a deep understanding of what serves your highest good. This doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means it becomes integrated. All parts of you start moving in the same direction, and that creates a kind of inner harmony that makes sustained action much more natural. The journey from self-sabotage to self-mastery isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming a whole person. Jung's insights show us that our struggles with discipline are often symptoms of deeper disconnection from ourselves. When you bring the unconscious into consciousness, when you integrate your shadow, when you align your actions with your authentic self, discipline stops being a battle and becomes a dance. Remember, you're not undisciplined because you're flawed. You're struggling because you're complex, because you carry within you the wisdom of your experiences, the protection of your survival mechanisms, and the longing of your authentic self. The path forward isn't about perfection. It's about integration, understanding, and ultimately, self-love. If this resonated with you, I want you to take action right now. First, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We're building a community of people committed to deep, transformative work, not just surface-level fixes. Second, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. We all know someone who's brilliant but stuck, someone who would benefit from understanding that their struggle with discipline isn't a character flaw, but a call to deeper self-awareness. And finally, I want to hear from you in the comments. What's one insight from this video that you're going to apply this week? What part of your shadow are you ready to acknowledge? Your sharing helps everyone in our community grow. Remember, you're not starting from scratch. You're coming home to yourself, and that journey is the most important work you'll ever do. Until next time, stay conscious, stay compassionate, and keep integrating.